are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Friday, January 19th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show and makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So, I did say it yesterday, because it's Friday, we are going to be previewing all of the divisional round matchups for this weekend. There's 4 games, so 4 games, 4 segments. Each game will get his own segment. I'll give you my predictions on them and my picks as well. And that is what the show will be for today. I know there was no baseball show today. That'll be next Friday. So make sure to look out for that. So let's get right into the first game. And that is talking about the Texans and the Ravens. So that'll be the first game that gets us started on Saturday. That'll be at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time in Baltimore. And I think I was listening to the local radio station here, and where I am, and they said that there is going to be some inclement weather on Saturday. So right now, at least I'm looking on CBS, weather's 26. It's going to be 26, and it shows the snowflake icon. So we could be seeing some bad weather there. And it's going to affect the game. Passing game, the wind also, I know that was another thing that was talked about. That's going to affect the passing game. And we did see C.J. Stroud and the Texans when they played against the Jets in bad weather. That didn't really fare well for them. So we got the Texans and the Ravens. So let's get to the actual game. So we got the Texans and the Ravens. These teams met all the way back in week 1, and the final score of that game was, I believe, 25-9, because we did talk about it earlier in the week. So yeah, the final score was 25-9. We went through the stats. Lamar Jackson really didn't pass for a lot of yards. Stroud really didn't as well. But these teams are very different since the first week of the regular season. So we're going to see a different game, and especially if the weather's not good. So the Texans, they're coming in 10-7. On the regular season. The Ravens 13-4. Had that first round bye. They are 9.5-point favorites. The Texans are coming off of that blowout win against the Browns at home, winning 45-14. C.J. Stroud had a great playoff debut. And he's going to be going up against the Ravens defense. That's going to be banged up a little bit. I don't believe Marlon Humphrey is playing in this game. You also have Kyle Hamilton, who is banged up. Mark Andrews, I think, is going to play, so that's going to be big, getting him back on offense. So, Devin Duvernay, he's expected to return as well, even though I don't think he's really going to factor that much. I mean, I guess, on special teams. But yeah, Marlon Humphrey, so he is ruled out for the divisional round against the Texans with the calf injury. So that's a big loss there. That is a big loss for the Ravens defense. So, we'll see if they're able to exploit that, the Texans. To kind of look at the comparison of the two teams, looking at the league rankings, again, looking at this on the CBS app. So the Texans actually 5th in passing yards per game. Ravens are 21st. Ravens are the number 1 rushing team in the NFL. Texans are 22nd. Points per game, the Ravens are 4th. The Texans are 13th. Then on the defensive side of the ball, the Ravens are 8th, giving up 218.6 passing yards per game. The Texans are 25th. Rushing yards per game, the Texans are giving up an average of 96.6 rushing yards per game, which is 6th. And the Ravens are 14th, giving up an average of 109.4. And then points allowed, the Ravens' defense is number 1 in the NFL, and the Texans' defense is 11th. So if the weather is bad, you're going to have to rely on the running game. And Devin Singletary for the Texans has done well for them in certain games, since he's kind of taken over as that lead running back over Dameon Pierce. But you kind of favor the Ravens running game over the Texans. And also, Dalvin Cook, I think, is going to be playing in this game. So you also have to factor that in as well. We'll see how he looks with the Ravens, because obviously with the Jets, it just wasn't a good fit. Really wasn't getting a ton of carries. And when he did, he really just didn't do much with his playing time. And that's why the Jets elected to let him go and go to a contender. And now he's a Raven to go along with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. So, yeah, I kind of favor the Ravens running game over the Texans. But that's going to have to, if the wind is a problem, if the weather's a problem, and they're going to have to run the ball, you're going to favor the Ravens. And again, when C.J. Stroud played against the Jets, it wasn't a good game for him, and that was in bad weather. So, and I would say the Texans are a different team when they're at home as opposed to when they're on the road, because they also did lose to the Panthers on the road as well, which I still can't believe that. But yeah, but I don't want to keep talking negative about the Texans. The fact that they've gotten this far is unbelievable. Credit to them, credit to their coaching staff, credit to C.J. Stroud. It's been a great season for them, and they're going to be a good team for a long time with Stroud at quarterback. And listen, there's pressure on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, because the last time they were the 1 seed, they did lose to Ryan Tannehill and the Titans, and they got some criticism for resting their starters. And they did the same thing this year against the Steelers, which allowed the Steelers to make the playoffs. So, yeah, there's some pressure on them to, kind of rewrite the wrong and win this game and get to the AFC Championship game, because if they win it, they're going to be hosting it. So, and I'm hoping, again, with all these games, hoping they're all good. This game, I think, can be good. I think the Texans will be competitive in this game. Again, these teams are very different from week 1. And Lamar Jackson still getting used to the new offense. C.J. Stroud obviously playing in his first NFL game. Now, this game's going to be different. I think the Texans will be competitive here in this spot, but I still like the Ravens to win, which is not a surprise. I just, I mean, again, anything can happen in these playoffs, and we've seen that, especially in the first round. But I just think this, here in this spot, and especially with the weather being a factor, I think the Ravens, they're going to pull this one out, and they're going to advance to the next round. But we'll see. If the weather holds up, which it doesn't really look like it, I mean, it could be close, but I think if this weather's going to affect the passing games for both teams, I'm going to favor the Ravens and their running game over the Texans. But we'll see. I mean, if the Texans defense, can they force turnovers? Obviously, it's going to be different from going against Joe Flacco to now Lamar Jackson, because now Lamar Jackson, he can move around. Joe Flacco really can't. So we'll see what their game plan is for this. But I think the Ravens, they should get this win. I think Lamar Jackson is motivated to get this, again, get this off his back, win a home playoff game. He does have a playoff win, of course. That was against the Titans back in the COVID season. But now you're the number 1 seed, and again, the last time you lost. Now he's going to try to rewrite the wrong, get it done, and win his first home playoff game now. And hopefully be in a position to host a AFC Championship game. So, yeah, with the bad weather, I don't really like that for the Texans. Again, Devin Singletary has run the football well for them at certain points during the year, but I think if you have to make them one dimensional and they're throwing in this bad weather, I don't know. Well, we'll see, but it's going to be a different game than it was in Week 1. I just know that. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game. How do you see this game playing out? And is kind of hoping that the weather isn't bad, so you could just see these two teams just trading touchdowns. But I mean, C.J. Stroud played really well in his playoff debut, but again, that was in Houston, and it was obviously weather was not a factor in the game. Now, if the weather is going to be a factor, we'll see, how it goes for him, because I mean, we go back to the game against the Jets really quickly, and again, I don't want to I don't want to talk negative about what C.J. Stroud's been able to do, because he can go out there and just light it up, even with the weather being as bad as it's going to be, as it seems. So Stroud went 10 to 20. I think he got hurt in the game too against the Jets as well. So yeah, he went 10 to 23, 91 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Got sacked 4 times. Yeah, it just it wasn't a good game. Bad weather conditions, and now you're going to be going up again, and that was against the Jets defense, which is a very good defense. But now you're going up against the Ravens, who are the 1 seed, and they got some injuries on defense now with Marlon Humphrey being out, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough matchup, but we'll see. He could prove us wrong. He definitely has done that, because a lot of people picked the Browns, and the Texans ended up winning. I mean, there were people that just thought the Texans really didn't have a chance, but I thought that game was going to be close, and it was for a little bit, and then the Texans pulled away. So, we'll see what C.J. Stroud does in the spot. It's going to be a different game than it was in Week 1, like I keep saying. And that'll get us started for Divisional weekend. So I think the Ravens will win. I think the Texans will keep it close. I'm gonna say the final score. I want to be more on the lower side. I'm going to say the final score is 23-17. That's going to be my final score. I'm going to say the Ravens win 23-17, and they move on to the AFC Championship game. And I kind of need them to do that because, I have them going to the Super Bowl in my bracket, which the bracket's kind of busted up because, the Cowboys I had going to the NFC Championship game, and they got knocked out in the first round. The Browns lost. The Rams lost. So, yeah, the bracket's not looking good. But the teams that I have going to the Super Bowl are still in it, and they're both playing on the same day. Because when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to talk about the later game on Saturday, and that is the Packers-49ers game. Packers, the 7th seed coming in, and the 49ers, of course, are the 1 seed. And yesterday I went through the previous playoff matchups between these two teams. And now we're going to talk about the matchup for tomorrow night in more detail. So that's what we're going to do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now preview the Packers 49ers game, the second game on Saturday night. That'll be at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And like the Texans, the Packers are 9.5-point underdogs. And also, Jordan Love, like C.J. Stroud, coming off of a great playoff debut. Again, they both had basically the same stat line. C.J. Stroud had 2 more passing yards than Jordan Love. And actually, looking at Jordan Love and Brock Purdy's stats, they're almost the same. Jordan Love has 1 more touchdown. They have the same amount of interceptions. And Brock Purdy has a little over 100 more passing yards. So, 49ers are 12-5, the number 1 seed. Didn't play last week, of course, because of the bye. Packers coming off of that 48-32 win over the Cowboys. And, yeah, I went over the previous playoff matchups between these teams. So it's going to be different now because, of course, Jordan Love is now the quarterback for the Packers. And Brock Purdy's the quarterback of the 49ers. And one of the common things with the previous playoff matchups is the 49ers being able to impose their will by running the football against the Packers. Colin Kaepernick, of course, in the divisional round in 2012 and in the wild card round in 2013, and also Frank Gore being a part of that. Then, of course, in the 2019 NFC Championship game, you had Raheem Mostert running for over 200 yards against them and having 4 touchdowns. In 2021, it was a very low-scoring game in the divisional round, 13-10. Niners didn't score an offensive touchdown. In this game, though, the Packers got to deal with Christian McCaffrey, who's an MVP candidate this year, and it should either be him or Tyreek Hill. That's who it should come down to, but we'll see when the NFL Honors happens and who ends up winning the award in a couple of weeks. But it should come down to a non-quarterback. It should come down to a non-quarterback for the MVP. But the Packers coming in, it's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be a really tough matchup. It doesn't get any easier. You beat the number 2 seed. Now you're going up against the number 1 seed. And the 49ers own the Packers. We talk about the Packers owning the Cowboys. The 49ers own the Packers in recent years. And it's going to be different with Jordan Love. But, I feel like the results are going to kind of be the same. So, actually, we'll look at the league rankings. So, the 49ers, they're 6th in passing yards per game. The Packers are 14th. They're 3rd in rushing yards per game. The Packers are 15th. They're 3rd in points per game. Packers are 12th. Then on the defensive side of the ball, the Packers' defense is actually 11th against the pass, giving up an average of 223.7 passing yards per game. The Niners are 14th, giving up 232.3. Against the run, the 49ers are 3rd, giving up an average of 89.7 rushing yards per game. The Packers are 28th. So, talk about the Packers' run defense, that's a problem. They went up against the Cowboys, who really couldn't run the football and really weren't running the football that well all year. So, it wasn't really a problem for them in that game. And then points allowed, both teams are top 10. However, the Niners are 3rd, giving up 17.5. And the Packers are 10th, giving up an average of 20.6 points per game. So, yeah, running the ball is going to be a problem for the Packers. Well, the run defense for the Packers. And I think that's ultimately what's going to be the difference in the game, is the Packers not being able to stop the run. Again, the Cowboys were not able to run the football effectively all year, and that's a separate topic, of course. And I've talked about that with how Tony Pollard struggled to run the football, and I think it's also because of him getting hurt in the playoffs last year. We'll see what happens next year. Another year removed from his injury, and maybe the Cowboys got to go out and get somebody else to pair with Tony Pollard. But here in this game, the Packers are not going to have to deal with Colin Kaepernick or Raheem Mostert, but they are going to have to deal with Christian McCaffrey, who is one of the best players in the NFL. So I think that's going to be a problem, and we'll see if the Packers are able to put together a game plan like they did against Dallas, but now it's a whole different thing going up against the 49ers, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Now, when you're talking about the Packers offense going up against the 49ers defense, I think the Packers offense can actually find some success. But I don't think from running the football. I think it's going to be from throwing it. Because again, earlier in the season, we saw the 49ers defense struggle on the back end when they went up against the Vikings, when they went up against the Bengals. If you give the opposing quarterback time to throw, depending on who it is, they could pick you apart. And Kirk Cousins was able to do that. And Joe Burrow was able to do that. And I think with Jordan Love coming in and with how he's been playing, if he's able to have time to throw, and he spreads the ball around. I talked about the divisional round against the Niners a couple of years ago. Rodgers really was only throwing to Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams the whole game. Jordan Love is going to spread the ball around to all these receivers and the two tight ends that they have. And he's going to have to throw it because if the Packers are going to want to win this game is going to be a shootout. It's going to happen. I think if the Packers fall behind early, this game is going to be over. I don't see the Packers coming back from it. Which I said the same thing against the Cowboys. If the Packers fell behind, I don't think they were going to be able to come back. But thankfully for them in that game, they were always ahead. But here it's going to be a lot different. The defense is going to have to really step up. And they're going to have to contain Christian McCaffrey. But then you also got to deal with Deebo Samuel running the football and catching passes, and Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. There's so many weapons on this offense. So the Packers are going to have to put up points in this game. But if they're not able to protect Jordan Love and he's getting sacked all over the place, it's going to be a long night for them. They're going to struggle to run the football. Aaron Jones, he's rushed for over 100 yards in, I believe, 4 straight games now, including the playoff game against the Cowboys. But I don't think that's going to happen in this game against the Niners. I don't think it's going to happen because, again, we just talked about it. The Niners' run defense is really good, so the Packers are going to have to throw it. And the one thing that I really like about Jordan Love is he stands tall in that pocket. When the pressure was coming a couple times in the Cowboys game, he was still able to, avoid it, stand tall, complete the pass. I know a lot of guys were wide open, but, that's something he's going to have to do in this game. He's going to take hits in this game. So, and I'm just curious to see how this matchup is going to be overall, just because, again, it's a new quarterback now for the Packers going up against this Niners team. And, again, hoping this is a good game. With the spread pool, my spread pool, I'm not going to finish in the top 4. So I did take the Packers with the points, but I'm not really, I'm picking more with, my heart as opposed to my head. Because the 49ers could definitely run up the score. I feel like this game could be similar to what it was like last year with Seattle in the first round, where Seattle kept it close. Seattle was actually winning that game at one point, and then the 49ers in the second half just opened it up, and they pulled away. I feel like something similar could happen in this game. So I still have the Niners winning. The 49ers in the NFC, they've been the best team all year in the NFC for the most part. I was still on the fence between them and the Eagles before they dismantled the Eagles, and the Eagles just completely fell off. And then Dallas, kind of stepped into the number 2 spot, but I'd still put the 49ers over them. For the most part, the 49ers have been the best team all year. I think it's also because when they had that 3-game losing streak, that was kind of when we put the Eagles as the number 1 team in the NFC. But once they got right and they got back to how they were at the beginning of the season, the 49ers are the best team. And I think they're going to show people tomorrow night why that's the case, because they could beat you in so many different ways, and I expect Brock Purdy to play well. I really haven't even talked about him. I talked about the weapons. I haven't really talked about Brock Purdy. But yeah, I just think this is a tough spot for the Packers. But like the Texans, because I have the Ravens winning. Credit to the Packers for getting this far. They had an up and down season, and the fact that they are playing the number 1 seed in the 49ers and they got to this point really is a credit to them. And the other thing too is when Brian Gutekunst said, this is going to be an important stretch for Jordan Love because, Jordan Love was up and down. Jordan Love really, took control of the season, and he looks like he's right now he's playing like a top 10 quarterback. More towards getting into the top 5. Well, I'm not saying he's a top 5, but he's working his way there the way he's been playing. But he really answered the call when the Packers general manager spoke because it was a crucial point, because if Jordan Love ended up not playing well, then maybe the Packers didn't find the guy, but I think it's safe to say that the Packers do have the guy. Now, and we'll see if he could repeat that next year, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the Packers were able to put together, I mean, they were 6-6 at one point. Then they beat the Chiefs. Then they lost to the Giants and the Bucs. Then they won 3 straight. Then they destroyed the Cowboys in the wild card round. And now they're playing against the 49ers. So, and this is the youngest team in the NFL. You look at all the receivers. I mean, Aaron Jones is the veteran on that offense. When you're talking about the playmakers, he is the veteran, and we'll see what happens. The Packers are still playing with house money. So I mean, I don't expect them to win, but again, just hoping it's a competitive game. That's really what it comes down to. But I have the 49ers winning this game and moving on to the NFC Championship game. But again, it's going to be a competitive game. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, it might be a competitive first half, but again, I picked the Packers with the 9.5. But again, that's more with my heart as opposed to my head, because I could definitely see the Niners winning by multiple scores in this game. But I think it'll at least be competitive for a little bit. But I think the 49ers definitely at some point are going to pull away. But the Packers defense, again, is going to have to really step up. They're going to have to step up, and the Packers offensive line is going to have to hold up against, that defensive front for the Niners. Because, again, if Jordan Love has time to throw, I think the Packers are going to be able to move the ball against him, at least throwing it. Running the football is going to be a challenge. But I think the way Jordan Love has been playing, if he's got time to throw and he can move around, I think the Packers offense can move the ball on this Niners defense. Because again, we saw it in a few games this year. It's not like it didn't happen. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you see winning? How do you see this game playing out? Let me know what you guys think. So before we go to our second break of the show, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we are then going to preview the third divisional round matchup, and that'll be the first game on Sunday, and that is between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. And I bet we all expected this was going to be a matchup in the playoffs going into the season. So that is what we will do when we come back from our second break of the show. It's also another rematch from earlier in the season. So we will discuss that when we come back from our second break of the show, like I said. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to preview the third divisional round matchup. Sorry, I almost said wild card. Divisional round matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. So these two teams met earlier in the season, like the Ravens and the Texans. They met back in Week 6, and that was in Tampa, and the Lions won that game 20-6. I did go over that earlier in the week. But the Bucs, they're coming in off of a win against the Eagles, a blowout win against the Eagles. Lions coming off of that close, the best game of the weekend. Rams, Lions, they're coming off of a close victory against them, winning 24-23. So, yeah. And, again, in the first matchup during the regular season, David Montgomery got hurt in that game, and there was no Jahmyr Gibbs. Craig Reynolds ended up being the lead rusher for the Lions. So now the Bucs are going to have to deal with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs has been playing really well for the Lions in the second half of the season. David Montgomery has over 1,000 yards rushing, 13 rushing touchdowns. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough game for the Bucs. I don't really like the matchup here. Again, similar to Jordan Love, the Bucs, they got to give Baker Mayfield time to throw. And Baker played well against the Eagles. He threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, although he should have had a pick in the game. He almost got intercepted a couple times at least. Mike Evans really didn't have a big game. It was really Trey Palmer and David Moore. I mean, they had those long touchdown receptions. You got to get Mike Evans more involved. Chris Godwin had a touchdown. You got to get him involved. The problem is the Bucs, again, they're a team also that really hasn't run the football that well. Rachaad White has had a good year. Actually has almost 1,000 yards rushing. He does have 6 rushing touchdowns, but they're not a very good rushing team. The Lions, however, are a very good rushing team with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And Jared Goff has played really well this year. And Baker Mayfield's played really well this year, too. This game, though, I'm going with the favorite. I'm going to take the Lions. The Bucs are getting 6.5, but I'm going to take the Lions in this game. But let's go through the league rankings first with these teams. So the Lions, 4th in passing yards per game. The Bucs are 18th. The Lions are 5th in rushing yards per game. The Bucs are dead last. They're averaging 88.8 rushing yards per game. And then points per game, Lions are 5th. The Bucs are 20th, scoring an average of 20.5 points per game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, both teams are bottom of the league in pass defense. The Lions are 29th, and the Bucs are 30th. And the Lions are actually 2nd against the run this year in rushing yards per game, giving up an average of 88.8. And the Bucs are 5th, giving up 95.3. So we'll see how they match up against this Lions rushing attack, but I think they're going to have problems. And then points allowed, the Bucs defense is actually 6th, and the Lions defense is 23rd. So, I mean, you would say, hey, Tampa's defense has been good. But, now we'll see when they go up against the Lions. I mean, Jared Goff threw for 353 yards in the first matchup. They really didn't have Montgomery. They didn't have Gibbs. So it's going to be a different game. And the Bucs, they only scored 6 points. I think there's going to be more scoring in this game. I don't think we're going to see 20-6, but I think it's going to be a tough matchup for the Bucs here. I mean, they're going to have to run the football. They're going to have to find some success. And that's another team, too, going into the offseason. They got to get somebody else to pair with Rachaad White. Because Rachaad White can make plays in the passing game more so. You got to get another running back in there. And I did bring up his name yesterday, but Derrick Henry's a name to think about. Because he did say he wants to go to a Super Bowl contender, and I don't think he would look at the Bucs as being that. But hey, they're in the playoffs. The Cowboys, they're talking about him going there. Well, listen, the Bucs, they technically got further than the Cowboys, so maybe you want to go there instead. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But I think that's one thing that the Bucs are going to have to address is maybe getting another running back to pair with Rachaad White, whether it's through the draft or free agency. That's just one thing I could think of. But yeah, I mean, for me with the Bucs, they're going to have to. This game is going to be a shootout because I mean, you saw in the Rams game. I mean, the Rams defense was struggling to stop the Lions' offense. Stafford had to put up points, and he did. The Rams. I thought they were going to pull it out at the end, but they fell a little short. But yeah, I mean, Baker's going to have a game like he had against the Eagles. You're going to have to throw for over 300 yards. You're going to have 3 touchdowns in the game. Get Mike Evans more involved. Get Chris Godwin involved. And the other thing, too, is for the Bucs receivers, can't have any drops in this game. You got lucky because the Eagles just really couldn't do anything on offense the whole game. The Lions are going to be different. The Lions are going to do what they did against the Rams. They're going to score 3 touchdowns on their first 3 drives, right? I think that's what it was. You're going to have to match that. And I don't know if they're going to be able to, and especially because, again, they're playing in Detroit. I know they are not playing outside because, you know what I'm talking about with the reporter asking Todd Bowles about preparing his team for the cold weather. You're inside. It's weather's not going to be a factor here. So both quarterbacks are going to be throwing. I mean, I think Baker's going to throw for he's going to have a decent game here, but I just think ultimately the Lions are the better team, and they won without Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And now they got them both for this game. It's gonna be a tough go for the Bucs here. But again, the Baker Mayfield story, I'm so happy that at least for this year he was able to find success and put together a good season. I mean, I think it was statistically his best year as a starting quarterback. Over 4,000 yards passing, 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. That's a good year for him, and able to to put the Bucs in the position to get to the second round. I mean, people looked at Tampa as probably going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and that was not the case. And it didn't look good at certain points. They started off well, then they went on that losing streak, and then they started trending up again. They really got back on track when they beat the Falcons the second time. And yeah, I mean, finishing the season 9-8, win a playoff game. Now you're going up against the 3 seed in the Lions. We'll see. Again, anything can happen. I just think it's not a good matchup for them. But I did see. So my friend sent yesterday a quote by C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Lions, and he basically said if the Bucs had a good quarterback, those receivers. I forget what exactly he said. If I can find it. Because I know my friend sent it yesterday. Let's see if I could pull it up. Because there's a lot of stuff that was sent in this sports chat. Just a lot of stuff gets sent. So now I don't know where it is. Let me see. But yeah, he basically kind of threw a little bit of shade at Baker Mayfield. And, that could be motivation for Baker to say, all right, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to prove you guys wrong. Oh, yeah, so here it is. If you give that Tampa group a good quarterback, that's a great group. That's basically what he said. So, I mean, listen, Mike Evans had a better year this year with Baker Mayfield than last year with Tom Brady. And again, I don't want to say, that, Baker's better than Tom Brady, but at least for comparing the 2022 Brady to 2023 Baker was the better quarterback. I mean, Tom Brady, the first couple of years in Tampa, he was unbelievable. But, last year it was tough. They had offensive line injuries, and Brady had to get rid of the ball quickly. And listen, Brady was 45. He can't move around. He doesn't want to get hit. So that's why he was constantly checking down to Leonard Fournette. And Mike Evans, I think, only had like 6 or 7 touchdowns the whole year, and in one game he had 3 touchdowns. But with Baker this year, he was great. It's been great. So listen, Baker's had a good year, and if it comes to an end, I'm hoping that the Bucs give him an extension, and this is his home moving forward, and the Bucs can build around him and try to get this team back up to, being, more than just a playoff contender. Now, again, I don't know if Baker Mayfield's going to be the guy for the next 10 years or so, but I think at least in the immediate future, he's going to be the starter. And I think he's earned the right to do so. I mean, he had a great year. And again, the Bucs are in this position. One of the main reasons is because of him. I think they also got to make sure that they figure out the contract situation with Mike Evans and get him back. But I'm happy that he was able to have a good year, and hopefully that this is his home moving forward. At least for the immediate future, it looks like that. It looks that way. Again, I'm taking it season by season. You know, um, so, but listen, whoever moves on from this game, I'll be happy. The Lions. I mean, it's the Bucks. Listen, you guys won the Super Bowl because of Tom Brady back in 2020. The Lions, they have not had any kind of success for a long time. They just won their first playoff game in 30 plus years. Now they are one game away from getting to an NFC Championship game, and they're hoping that they can get that done, and the people of Detroit deserve that. I saw that. I think David Montgomery was at like a gas station, and a woman came over to him crying, thanking him for, them winning the playoff game against the Rams, and she hugged him, and that just shows that they really. It's been a rough time for the Detroit fans, and this team is special, and Dan Campbell has turned that team around. Jared Goff, I mean, again, his story too with the Rams trading him to the Lions. The Rams got their Super Bowl, and now Jared Goff was able to give the people of Detroit a playoff win for the Lions, which is something Stafford wasn't able to do. So I mean, there's great stories all around going into this game. So I mean, I'll be happy with whoever wins, but I'll kind of be upset with whoever loses, because I was happy Baker was able to succeed. And again, I like what the Lions have been able to do, what Dan Campbell, the culture that he's built. If the Lions, I mean, it's going to be soul crushing if the Lions lose on Sunday. With the Bucks, I mean, it's not going to be like that. But the Lions, if they lose, is going to be more depressing, just because of again, them getting to this point and finally winning a playoff game. And if it all comes to an end against the Bucks, that just that would be unfortunate. But for me, I think that the Lions win this game. I think they win. I'm gonna say they win 30 to. I'm gonna say 30-20. I think that's the final score. But we'll see. For the Bucks, I mean, they're gonna have to, contain that rushing attack. But then you're gonna have to deal with Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's really where it's gonna be a problem, is the passing game. And the Lions have one of the better balanced attacked offenses in the league. It's a tough matchup. So the Bucks are gonna have to put up points. Gonna have to get your playmaker. You're gonna have to get Mike Evans more involved, because he really didn't have a big game against the Eagles, but he didn't have to, because the Bucks just dominated the Eagles. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think on how you think this game is going to turn out. And with that, when we come back from our final break of the show, the best for last, we will preview Mahomes Allen Part 3 of the playoffs. Now it's been more than just, they played each other plenty of times, but at least in the postseason, this is Part 3. So we're going to preview that, and I will let you know who I think is going to win. And that's what we'll do to conclude the show. So, for one more time, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to now preview Mahomes Allen Part 3. Now, this is taking place in Buffalo. It's going to be different. Obviously, the previous two playoff matchups between these two teams took place in Arrowhead. And I'm really looking forward to this game. I cannot wait. It's going to be different, though. Because the Chiefs are a different team. There's no Tyreek Hill in this matchup. You still got Travis Kelce, of course. But, the Chiefs have a different receiving core than the last time they played the Bills in the postseason. Obviously, they played each other in the regular season the last 2 years, including this year. The last 3 years. They played them in 21 in Arrowhead. 2020 again was in Buffalo, but again, that was with no fans. Now we got fans. Bills Mafia is going to be going crazy for this game. And yeah, the last time these teams met was, of course, the whole Kadarius Toney lining up off sides, his foot being just past the line of scrimmage, and that lateral play worked, and the Chiefs went ahead, and you thought the Chiefs were, pulled it out, but that was not the case. Patrick Mahomes was really upset after that. Thought he was gonna. It looked like he wanted to fight the ref. I mean, he was throwing his helmet down. It was not a good look for Mahomes. But and listen, that got the Bills started on their playoff run. I mean, they've been in playoff mode for basically 2 months. And Josh Allen is 0-2 against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. And now he's at home. And he's coming off of a good performance against the Steelers. Had that 50-yard rushing touchdown, 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions in the game. I think this game's going to be close. The line actually went up from 2 to 3, or 2.5 to 3, right? Yeah, 2.5 to now 3. The Bills are favored by 3 in this game. I do have the Chiefs going to the AFC Championship game. But, I mean, this game is going to be really close. I think this game's going to be close. I pretty much said that about, every game. But I think this game is going to be close. I think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. Now, it's going to be different because, obviously, the Chiefs offensively have not been this offensive juggernaut like they have been in years past. And one of the reasons why they've been successful this year is because of their defense. And I think that's going to be what keeps this game close, is the Chiefs' defense. And also, the Bills, they're banged up on defense. Their defense is banged up. I think Rasul Douglas was on the injury report. Taron Johnson. Because this is when I was listening to the radio yesterday. Let's take a look. So Gabe Davis, who had that big playoff game against the Chiefs a couple years ago, he didn't practice on Thursday. Knee injury, so he's questionable. Rasul Douglas is questionable. Taron Johnson was limited on Thursday. He's questionable. So, yeah, and then you also got Taylor Rapp, calf injury. He did not practice. So, yeah, the Bills could be missing some key pieces in the secondary on Sunday. That's going to be a problem. Now, the Chiefs can exploit that. However, their receivers need to hold on to the ball. Rashee Rice has played really well as of late. I'm not worried about him, but there might be some other guys that need to step up. Now, Kelsey's had a few drops too, and he hasn't looked the same this year, but, it's Travis Kelce. It's these other guys like Valdez-Scantling. I don't know if Kadarius Toney is going to play in this game because I know he didn't play last week. He's had a drop problem. I know Sky Moore was on IR for a while. Is he? Let's see. Let's see if, because again I'm looking at CBS. Let's see if CBS has any updates. So yeah, Sky Moore is on injured reserve, expected return. So maybe he is coming back for this game. Kadarius Toney was limited. He's questionable. So we'll see. But I think the other thing too is the Chiefs are going to rely on Isaiah Pacheco running the football, and he's done a nice job this year. So again, it's not the same Chiefs offense that we're accustomed to seeing. We're definitely not going to see 42-36. That's not going to happen. We're not going to get that. But it's still going to be a very competitive game, I feel like, because the Bills, with their injuries on defense and the way the Chiefs' defense has played this year, I think Josh Allen's going to turn the ball. I think Josh Allen will turn the ball over in this game at least once. I'm pretty sure I said that in the Steelers game, and that didn't happen. But I think we'll see that with the Chiefs' defense here. And again, this is Patrick Mahomes' first playoff road game, not including the Super Bowls. This is the true first road playoff game for him. So we'll see how that is, because now it's going to be different, playing in that hostile environment. And it's going to be the first time he's playing in Buffalo with fans, because again, COVID season, there were no fans, which made that easier. So, and actually, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a really good game on the ground. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen here because, they got Pacheco now. But actually, let's go back to that, because I didn't look at that. I didn't look at the stats for that game. Let's see, 'cause I think he had over 120 yards rushing. Let's see. So yeah, the Chiefs won that game 26-17. Yeah, Edwards-Helaire had 26 carries for 161 yards in that game. Wow. That's unbelievable. But we're not going to see that. We're not seeing that on Sunday. That's not happening. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we saw with the Bills against the Steelers, they went up 21-0, and then they kind of took the foot off the gas pedal, and the Steelers kind of came back in the game. I don't think the Chiefs are going to fall behind 21-0, but if the Chiefs are losing, I mean, I'm not going to count them. I mean, unless it gets really out of hand, if the Bills, come out and they, come out on fire like they did against the Steelers. If the score gets really out of hand, then you might have to say, wave the white flag there. But, I mean, I don't think it's going to get that way. I really think that this game is going to be close, but we'll see. And listen, I think the Bills, they finally want to get this off their back, and they want to finally be able to beat the Chiefs and get to a championship game. Well, I mean, they did that in 2020, but, they want to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs in a big spot, because they have not been able to do that. They've owned them in the regular season in recent years, but when you get to the postseason, it's different. So this is a big game for them. And again, we'll see how Patrick Mahomes is in his first road playoff game. But, Mahomes has 2 Super Bowls. I mean, if the Chiefs lose this game, obviously there'll be some criticisms there, and they have things to address in the offseason. Like, they're going to have to fix this receiving core because they can't run it back like this next year, with the amount of drops that guys have had. And, but for the Bills, this is a big spot for them. Like, they have to win this game. And it's tough for me again because, look, I had the Chiefs going to the AFC Championship game and losing to the Ravens. But, again, I mean, it's just my bracket. It's already busted up. But it's tough. I think it's really tough. Because, I mean, the Bills, they've struggled this year, but they've been in playoff mode for a while now. And this is the team that is kind of their kryptonite in the postseason. I don't even, well, should I even really say kryptonite? I mean, they lost 42-36 a couple years ago. So, I mean, it's kind of been like that brick wall that's been in their way. Yeah, we'll say that. Kryptonite, because that means they just haven't, I mean, if you want to talk about kryptonite, even though they played them once, I mean, the Bengals last year, they destroyed them in Buffalo in the snow. But, yeah, I mean, Josh Allen has played well in the playoffs against the Chiefs. It's just they've just kind of been on the losing end, so, I mean, we'll see. I think it's going to be a great game, but that it's anything can happen. So I mean, for me, I still have the Chiefs winning, but it's going to be a close game, I think. you know. But if the Bills win this, I'd be very happy for them because that means they'd finally get over that hump, and they finally beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. I mean, listen, they're at home. They should win. They should win the game. You got that crowd behind you. Patrick Mahomes never played a road playoff game before. This would be a huge win for them. But it's going to be tough because, again, you're missing pieces on defense. You could be missing more with, again, just going over the injury report. But we'll see. Actually, did I go over the league rankings with these teams? I don't think I did. So when it comes to the league rankings for these teams, if I could find it, I don't know where. Oh wait, here we go. So both teams are top 10 in passing yards per game. Oh, I just realized my camera went off. Huh, that's interesting. I don't know when that happened. All right, just give me a second. I'll fix it. Hold on 1 second. And nope, that did not do what I wanted it to do. Oh, that's great. This was towards the end of the show. What the heck? What happened? I can't believe this. I know, I was looking at my phone, and all right, that's great. I don't know what happened, guys. That's I apologize for that. I did not think that was gonna. I know it was like working great the whole show, and then all of a sudden it just decides to act up on me. That's great. I know I don't know what's been going on with my video camera. It just doesn't make any. All right, so here we go. We're back. So anyways, because we got a few minutes here. So yeah, top 10 in passing yards, both teams per game. The Bills are 7th in rushing yards per game, and the Chiefs are 19th. And then points per game, the Bills are 6th, the Chiefs are 15th. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're both top 10. The Bills are 6th, giving up 216.2 passing yards per game. The Chiefs are 4th, giving up 197.2 passing yards per game. Both teams are middle of the pack when it comes to running the football. So you figure James Cook is going to be a factor in this game for the Bills, and obviously Pacheco for the Chiefs. And then points allowed, the Chiefs' defense is 2nd, and the Bills' defense is 4th. So, I mean, we'll see how this game goes. But, yeah, I just wanted to run through that very quickly. I can't believe my camera did that, but whatever. It's going to happen at least. It seems like it's going to happen at least once. Although the last couple of days it's been better. I don't know why it decided to do this now. But, yeah, I do have the Chiefs winning. I'm going to say it's not going to be 42-36. It's going to be, I'm going to say the final score is 24-21. I think that's the final score. Chiefs win. Might come down to a Harrison Butker game-winning field goal. But we'll see. I mean, again, the Bills are at home, but with the injuries on defense, that concerns me. But we'll see. Again, it's Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game, so anything, we'll see how he is in that environment. I mean, I think he'll be fine. But again, worry about the Chiefs and their receivers being able to catch the ball. Well, some of them. Rashid Rice has been good. But Kelsey's had a drop problem too, and he hasn't looked right. So I don't know how he's going to be in this game. We'll see. But it's going to be a good game, and it's going to be a good weekend. And on Monday we will have 4 teams remaining. So I hope everybody enjoys the weekend, enjoy the games. I definitely will, speaking for myself. But yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Again, I thank you guys for watching. We'll be back again on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, enjoy the games, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care.